All right, here's the plan. With the 13th overall pick, we're going to take Hannah Jump, but she's worse at everything, and she's also just tall.
Today we're going to be breaking down our just what we thought from the 2024 WNBA Draft. It's almost been a week, and we'll be talking all about that too today.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
New fancy intro. Welcome, you're Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. My name is Hunter Cruse, your Saturday host, covering the WNBA Draft and prospect scouting. I'm joined by my co-host, Em Adler. Em covers the WNBA with a focus on player development and the game within the game. We're without Lincoln today, but he's here in spirit. And for this episode,
he's making us sandwiches.
He is. I want to open this episode by posing a question to you. What rookie selected outside of the lottery will make the biggest impact on their team this season?
I mean, I think the easy answer here is J.C. Sheldon, right? She is probably right now, I think you and I would say, maybe not right this second, but like by the All-Star break, by the Olympic break, she's going to be, I think we would put pretty good odds on her being the best non-Arike guard on the wings. Like, I like Crystal Dangerfield. It's not a high jump to being a better player than Crystal Dangerfield. You know, J.C. Sheldon can do a lot of things that maybe don't carry as much value for Dallas when we're talking about rim pressure. What's the value of rim pressure when you're playing next to Tara McCowan and Natasha Howard? But, you know, it is what it is. She has the driving ability. She has solid playmaking for a team that, you know, plays a certain way of offense that, you know, they don't need as much full playmaking. So you have the shooting and you have the movement there. And she just plays solid defense in a way that she has size and is probably going to be a solid defender in a way that none of their other guards are, including Arike. What about you? What do you think?
I figured you were going to say Leah Edwards. I figured that's what you were going to say.
Well, I mean, like, how much effect is it going from like 6 wins to 7?
True. I really am interested to see how that front court pairing works. Do you think they start Aaliyah immediately?
I think they start Aaliyah. Well, I mean, the other option is what? MHA?
Yeah.
We can do some really good content for the folks listening at home, which is where I'm talking over myself to stall while I look up the salary cap sheets that I have up for the offseason from Washington. So we're just going to talk while I scroll over in this spreadsheet all the way to the right. We have Washington. So, yeah, I mean, your other options are they're not going to start Queen Egbo and Shakira Austin. So, yeah, I mean, your other option is basically Emily Angsler or MHA. Like, Aaliyah's going to get a shot in camp.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm interested to see how that goes.
It's not really a draft question, but I'm interested in finding out who they start at the 3. Because, like, you could convince me that they make the very weird decision of Brittany Sykes starting at the 1, or Julie Van Loo could start at the 1, and Sykes plays the 3. Is Carly coming off the bench? I don't know. I'm interested in that one, but again, not draft questions. Who do you think is going to, like, let's say we fast forward to September, 5 months from now. Who do you think outside the lottery, outside J.C. Sheldon, is a rookie that will be having a like tangible impact on the course of their team season?
I would take the question towards like playoff basketball, and the thing is, I don't know if there's like an obvious name. Like,
yeah. I mean, I kind of got lucky with you asking me first because I could just take JC. Because like after that, the answer is what? Like, who's going to be contributing? Maybe Marquisha. Otherwise,
maybe Nika Mule. Like maybe.
I was going to say your options are basically Nika Mule and just Nika Mule.
Alyssa Peely, maybe.
Future Finals MVP Kate Martin.
Hey, you never know.
Just saying.
But just like a general thing, this is like a question that people look at the draft and they like, okay, who can we get to immediately make an impact for us? And that's kind of how fans look at it. Like, okay, why did we
Mhm.
take this international? We could have had some okay role player. Like,
I'm sure
in
you
the
don't have
grand
any
scheme,
like direct experience with fans yelling about taking international players.
there's like 4 different teams that kind of applies to. Like, I think
Yeah, but you're
everyone
the
was
dream
mad.
beat.
Yeah, that's true. But I think like Connecticut, you saw Connecticut. I mean, even Dallas with that second pick as well. And I think in the
Mhm.
draft, it's about getting good players, but it's also about getting upside and getting players that can impact you 2 to 3 years from now. Not just like who's going to come in, compete in camp, be a solid spot minutes player on our bench. It's really about having that extra impact 2 to 3 years from now.
Right. Like that's the thing with a league that has only 12 teams in it, is that there is such a high baseline here that like you can take players like, if you're in a position to, you can take a player like Nadia Puch when you have the 12th overall pick, because there's not a lot of like big upside options off the board, and what she can do, the solid ways that she's most likely to contribute. But in a league where it's so compressed, if you're drafting higher, if you're top 6, top 5, then you need to be able to hit that level of upside if you want to be able to be contributing to what you hope is a future title team. Like, drafting a high floor, low ceiling player is not going to cut it in the lottery as like a long-term strategy. So like
Yeah,
Grace
then
Berger didn't go in the lottery last year. Same thing with, it was a weird year, but it's why teams, particularly the smart ones, did not dislike Maddie Siegrist, but they weren't particularly excited about the opportunity to draft her as high as she ended up going.
Yeah, so after the break, we'll talk about Chicago's draft. We'll also talk about what Los Angeles did in the lottery. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. More than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the number one finance destination, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analytic ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. Comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you that you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one finance destination, yahoofinance.com. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you didn't know already, Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So to open segment 2, I want to talk about a little bit Chicago's draft. Chicago did extremely well from the perspective of getting some more young talent.
They did really well on Monday.
They did really well in the draft itself. If you ignore what they gave up as far as future assets, they did really well. And I think that's a part that people forget about grading their draft. It's what they gave up to move up one spot.
Yeah.
They gave up a lot.
Yeah. I mean, like, it is funny, and I'll get to what the actual, like, thrust of it is, but, like, it's really funny that there was the swap in the deal of Sika Kone for Nina Milic. Nina Milic is a very solid backup big at the W, especially, like, standout offensive rebounder. good play finisher on the inside, but it is very funny that like somehow Sika Kone had to be involved in this deal. Like salary didn't really have to be matched. I don't really know why she had to change hands. Like Chicago, I guess. I guess the point is that Chicago already has Izzy and Ewell on the veterans contracts. They do big money, and that they knew that they were making this move to end up with Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese. So they didn't have any room for Sika Kone. But it is funny that like you're a team that is, I can name their rotation, they're gonna be dog crap next year and probably the year after, and so on and so forth until young players develop. You get the point. It is really funny that they're like, hey, we have this like 20-year-old, 21-year-old who showed like some interesting flashes of solid WNBA play. Let's trade her because we're gonna play some like role 4 vets instead. Not what I would have done. But I'm not getting paid not enough money to have a part-time job at a WNBA office. But yeah, I mean, as far as like the crux of the deal, like we're actually going over this. Please stay tuned to our website on Monday for our last article of sort of the college season on prospects. But yeah, I mean, what they basically gave up was the gap between what like Yarden Garzon / Bella Fauntleroy. They gave up to Minnesota for free, basically the option to go from like what we expect to be like Yarden Garzon to upgrade to like Kiki Rice or Lauren Betts. And that's a pretty good gap. Like that was effectively what they gave up to jump one spot for probably the same player, if we're going to be quite honest. Like maybe Minnesota would have taken Angel Reese. Yeah. I wouldn't be putting money on that.
I don't think they would have made that move back a spot. Like it's possible. Yeah. It's possible. But from a now perspective, though, there's just going to be a lot more excitement around this franchise. Like they desperately need it.
Super fun. I mean, you have a lot of personality there. And like on the court, it should be very exciting too. Not saying it'll be good, but it'll be very exciting. Like this is a thing that I want to see in person.
Yeah, very interesting group of players. They just don't have that. They're just missing a couple of the main pieces, and that's why it's kind of nice to have draft picks. But but like there's a
lot of skill on this roster in such a way that like the rotation, if you just look at the names in terms of like the projected depth chart, like I'm going to go down really quickly. Lindsay Allen backed up by Dana Evans. Marina Mabry backed up by Brenda Maxwell. Diamond Shields, ? I don't really know what they want to do at the 3. Backed up by Onyenwere or vice versa. Izzy backed up by Angel, backed up by BT, probably. Ewell backed up by Cardoso. That's a lot of, like, there is a lot of, like, specific role talent there, and, like, the way that, like, let's take this top 7 there. You see where there's some front court defense. You see where there's some shot creation. You see where there's some shooting. There's, like, the outlines of a runnable system with a young team such that you give runway for young players like Cardoso, like Angel, like Dana, to get reps and to get solid pieces around them. This is why you bring in a Brenda Maxwell, because they're not signing a shooter off the street. Robin Parks is getting suspended for the season like she was on Friday. And you need some level of spacing in this lineup, because otherwise there's really Marina is your only actually above average shooter. So you can see where they slot things in here and where things fit, and they should be setting up some of their younger players for, I think, as much success as could be hoped for. Long-term vision aside, it's fun. In the way that, like, a bad team can be fun.
They could have Kennedy Carter, too. They could.
Yeah, she's cooked.
And then flipping it over to...
Isn't she, like, playing in the Polish league or something?
She played for 2 different teams this year, I remember. She played. I know she played in China, and then she played somewhere else in Europe. I don't remember where she was playing, but she changed teams like mid-season, which is not a surprise there. But then flipping it over to LA, good draft. They got Cameron Brink, Rakia Jackson. They also got Mackenzie Forbes in the 3rd round, someone that I thought would have been off the board before they got her, which is, I think, it's solid value there. What do you think of their draft? And I think they're definitely set up better than Chicago moving forward, just having their young their
Well, yeah, they have Cameron Brink.
Yeah, they do have Cameron Brink too. Very good player.
Yeah. I mean, so it's funny. I think going into the draft, we both would have looked at them and said, hey, there's an interesting sort of fight going on here for the last couple spots on the roster that'll happen in camp, between some of the, veterans minimums players they brought in, Taylor Mikesell, Mackenzie Forbes in the third round. But I think when you look at it in totality, it's like, it's it's a mix of sort of like mid-career players who, have looked good in different contexts for LA. And I think a way that maybe the rest of the league might have underrated. You can see this, we can say that this applies to Lexi Brown, Aaron McDonald. You could say it applies to Ray Burrell. It's a mixture of that. It's a mixture of players who are sort of on the outs of their careers or were sort of brought in for a vision that doesn't really match up anymore. We said that's Mo Billing, Leisha Clarendon, Kia Nurse. You get the point there. And then you have you have these two super young, exciting players mixed in Rakia Jackson and Cameron Brink. And I think it becomes really interesting now, sort of how they fit that in, because there's a lot of forwards on this roster, and Julia Aleman's hurt, Azrae Stevens is hurt, and so that means both things are getting a little weird in the lineup for the first couple months. Like, what are they doing at the 3? I assume Rakia is going to get quite a bit of run there. Cameron Brink's going to get a run at the 4, maybe a little bit at the 5, but there's definitely going to be a lot of runway there because it's not like there's much competition for players who are like objectively good at basketball to like have their shot. And I think that means if you're in LA, you're going to be watching some young, talented players, right? That's the best we can really say there.
It should be
what did you think about their draft, at least relative to like opportunity and vision?
Yeah, I was worried they were going to do the thing and take Rakia at 2, then allow Chicago to get Brink at 3, then they end up with Cardoso. I don't like that as much.
I thought the worry was taking Cardoso at 2.
Either or. I think
Well,
either or. I like the idea of having a forward, then you can also have your big. I think it just gives you more flexibility. Just kind of being able to really build a young core here where you can actually play people together. And yeah, I just think Brink was the obvious number 2 pick here. I'm glad they didn't overthink it and went a different direction. Stays in California.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get, I shouldn't say I think, I hope we're going to get some minutes this year of like Rakia at the 3, Brink at the 4, like Z at the 5. And, if that's actually what's on the court, then like Z was probably playing the 4 and Brink's at the 5. That's not the point though. Like I hope we get those 3 together because that is a certain level of like modern flexibility and interchangeability on defense with your 4 and 5 in a way that sort of covers up what Rakia is going to be fine, but like might not provide as sort of like a plus in that sense. Where on the other end, you sort of space around her and are able to move off of her and let her kind of go to work. I think in the same way, I'm definitely hoping to see, like players like Lexi Brown, players like Leisha Clarendon, Stephanie Talbot. These are the kind of vets that you want to have, I think, around young players when you're trying to feel out and discover what the appropriate level of usage is for them in their career. You have these players who are to some extent scalable, but certainly very good off the ball and bring a lot of value off the ball and also defensively. And I think that builds up a good infrastructure here. You are hoping for, and when I say you, I mean like the royal you, the royal us. They need a great young guard, like this sort of youngish core, and even like mid-career core doesn't make any sense, I think, without like a star impact guard. But like, hey, if they suck hard enough, like they're probably the favorite to land Page. So like, if you're looking at like a lineup of like Page, Lexi Brown, Stephanie Talbot, Rakia Jackson, Cameron Brink, Azrae Stevens as your 6th woman, like that's not a lineup that I would ever expect Kurt Miller to play, but like it's what a good coach would at some point, and that's a hell of a lineup going forward.
Yeah, I like it. I like the young core moving forward. But after the break, we'll talk about what both of the super teams did with Las Vegas and New York's draft.
They certainly did stuff.
When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is a tool to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even though those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So to open segment 3, we'll talk about what both New York and Las Vegas did in the 2024 draft. New York, they took Marquisha Davis. They also took, in the second round, I think they had 3 second-round picks, right? Or 2. They took Esmery Martinez.
Yep.
They also took Jessica Carter.
Yep.
And then they took Caitlin Davis as like a draft and stash.
There's something interesting that we'll eventually talk about, but like eventually we'll figure out exactly sort of what the underpinning, philosophical underpinning of like who to target with this is, and even what the point is. And also whether players are into it. But like at a certain point, we will do something with this. Like, hey, we'll take like a really athletic but like not particularly great or remotely WNBA caliber player in the third round and just like stash her for a year.
They did that last year too.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did that with Okako Adika, who's coming to camp and has 0% chance of cracking this roster.
Yes.
Like, yeah, like if you're Caitlin Davis, like it's one thing to, I think, get drafted and stash. Like you have a shot theoretically in camp next year. If you do, I'm sure that part of this comes with like the scouts, the coaches, the managers, or whatever, having like a little plan they give to Caitlin Davis and say, here, you should work on this while you're playing in Europe for the next year or something. And then she comes to camp with that skill and in theory has like a better chance of making the roster. Obviously, like no one has any idea what they saw in Okako Adika specifically. Caitlin Davis, I can get it a little bit more, but like, I mean, if you're Davis, like, we'll see what happens next year, because I think like if you do this in back-to-back drafts to like start off this strategy and like it doesn't come close to like working out the player's benefit either time, then agents are probably going to get pretty mad at you.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of which, oh sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, it depends if it's a mutual thing where it's like,
yeah,
they're like, this is like, yeah, I'm cool with this. But what'd you think of the pick at 11? What do you think about that? I think from an upside standpoint, it's like it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, like, look, this is a team that doesn't have many needs, and the needs they have are really hard to fill, right? Because you have the starting lineup that you have. We know its strengths and we know its weaknesses. And currently, unless they're actually going to do something revolutionary on offense, which we saw glimpses of last year, but they never really got around to actually doing. Unless you're doing something revolutionary on offense, there's a cap of what you can do when your starting lineup involves 2 guards who, at this stage in their careers, can't really defend in a primary role, and one of them is pretty much always going to have to. We saw this with Vegas when KP and Chelsea and Jackie started playing together. Jackie was young, Chelsea was fine, mediocre defender for a career, and KP was still super raw when they were young, and that was some really bad team guard defense that was just sort of covered up by what Bill Lambert's scheme meant in terms of help. But like we saw this as it developed under Becky, that like the guard defense in like last year's finals and last year's playoffs like was really good. Chelsea Gray as a help defender, Jackie Gray is obviously an excellent wing defender. KP is really starting to come into her own as a chaser in this league. And that's just not those are roles that you can fill when the other ones are in their roles. And they're like, that Nigel Laney is not going to cover Kelsey Plum, she's not going to cover Kelsey Plum. She's not going to cover Jewel Lloyd particularly well in like a full series. She's a great wing forward defender and she's versatile, but she's not going to do that. And so one of Sloot or Sab has to do that. And Sloot could do that in surprisingly well for, the prime of her career in Chicago. She's not that anymore. She's in her mid-30s. It's understandable. Sabrina Ionescu is very good defensively for what she was coming into the league, but that's not what you expect there. And like, again, if you're trying to fill that hole with some upside, that's Marquisha Davis, right? Like she has athleticism, she has the length. You've watched more of her than I have, but like we know what the shot making is. We know it's, there's shot creation if it's not particularly efficient. But I think the idea here is that there's effort, there's work ethic, and they just want to sort of mold her from there, right?
Yeah, the pitch from Marquisha as this pick is athletic, 2'3", can defend multiple spots, was in that Coach Yo defensive infrastructure. The shooting, it's a really massive question, but she can score in the mid-range, crafty around the rim. There's upside here, and, I mean, it's not a bad pick. I think people wanted them to take Nika Mule, but I don't know about the opportunity there.
It wouldn't have fit on the roster either, right? Because you already had Vanda Dojkic.
Yeah, there's probably more upside with Marquisha here.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more upside, and definitely like the upside is a better fit for what they need. Right. Because like I think coming in, we expected that the final spot, depending on who they picked, it would probably be in a camp battle with like Stephanie Mawuli. I would probably still put, like, this isn't what the coaches in the net or like the GM is probably going to say, but I would say based on what we've seen with their talent, like Jalen Schrod's great, but she has her limits. Rita Ibakwe is a fine college player, yada, yada, yada. You can do that with everyone. You can do that with Jessica Carter, Esmira Martinez. I'm just looking at the roster here. Brianna Fraser is obviously, and Ada Tadic are clearly not cracking this roster. But in terms of like talent, you get to Mawuli and Marquisha Davis, and I assume that they'll go with Davis, but that's probably where you're trying to push the talent from, right?
Yeah. And then lastly, what do you think about Vegas?
Can I pass? Which is what they did with most of their picks, basically.
They got a bucket. Deisha Fair can score.
Yes, Deisha. I forgot who I was talking to about this, but like, look, they're gonna blow everyone out by like, same as last year. They're just last year but better again. So when they're winning over, trying to think of a team. When they're beating like Connecticut by like 40 points in the mid of the fourth quarter, I'm going to be really excited to see Deisha Fair play the last 5 minutes of the game and just do some stuff. She might go 0 of 6. She might go 5 of 7. It's going to be fun, right? I have not looked at their cap sheet because I can't really be bothered to care. We know who like the 7 rotation players are, and they're going to also take Sydney Colson. What they do beyond that, like, I don't know, man. They'll probably take Deja Fair. Kirsten Bell is also there. They drafted. They used a pick for Instagram likes.
Yeah. The problem is they're like 1 to 2 injuries away from being like in a very bad spot. And then
like a really, like I said this on the friend of the pod, Snap Wilson's 6th pod of the year. But like you're like one misstep on the court that leads to like a very unfortunate situation with a knee, and plus like another ankle sprain away from like starting Sydney Colson and Kirsten Bell, which you can't win a title with. No offense.
It's tough. Another worry for me is I just think they need to have more young players coming in. That's another worry for me. Like just having a young core. I know it's probably the easiest general manager job in sports right now. Like
for sure.
Like you have a roster that was built just based on drafting lottery picks and signing Chelsea Gray, then signing Candace Parker. If you can just get more young players in, like what I would have done is I would have done what Atlanta did and just taken shots on all these internationals. It would have made a lot more. I think that strategy would have made even more sense for Vegas.
And for God's sakes, take Charisma Osborne over Kate Martin. Like, come on! If one of your guards tears their ACL, you're gonna need some level of steady handle and creation and like defensive effort here. Like,
I do like that for her though.
Yeah, I mean, she's almost certainly gonna crack the roster in Phoenix. And it was a nice moment for Kate Martin. That was cute. It was cute. She doesn't buy championships, and like. I don't think this will ever come to pass, but it's entirely possible that, again, you get one bad ACL and then you get like 1 or 2 unexpected players like going home in free agency when you expected them to re-sign. And suddenly you're like, how did we turn 3 straight championships into like a roster where we have to start like a 4th-year player who no other teams would even want to sign?
Yeah.
You're in a weird situation with that where like they don't actually need to do anything in the draft to be the odds-on title favorite. But like, if you want to do the shit that like the Warriors under Bob Myers were trying and obviously clearly strongly failing at doing in his last few years, they're a terrible announcer too, then you can't do this in the draft. You have to like actually take shots with future players, which was like, look, Elizabeth Kitley is what she is, but that was a good pick there for what they
That was good.
For the position they were in. Deja Fair's like 25. You're not getting that same level there. You can go with Chris Osborne. You can go with last year in a national at those spots instead of just kind of throwing them away.
Or just taking Borlase.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but thanks for Locked On Women's Basketball, your first listen every day. This is our last episode on the 2024 draft. We're moving forward to
in the
2025.
books.
2025 is very fun, a very fun class. A lot of guards, some more guards. Be very fun to evaluate them over the next 12 months. And make your second listen Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.